Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the CFE study plan for the last 7 days before your exam. If you like what you see, please remember to like and subscribe, and if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Okay, so let's get right into it. This is 7 days right before your exam. What are you going to do? So on the day 7, you're going to essentially start simulating your CFE exam. So we're going to start with the day 1 case, and we're going to write that in the exam setting. So what that means is if you haven't been doing this all along, it's essentially one laptop, one keyboard, and your wired mouse. Okay? Make sure you bring your wired mouse because CPA doesn't give you one, and that's pretty much all you have. You could have some paper on the side to write in terms of your scrap notes. You can have your pen, your pencil, and all that, a bottle of water, some snacks if you need. So we're going to write the day 1 case, and we're going to write it to basically how you would approach it next week. Okay? So we're going to remember all of those basic case writing skills that we have in terms of situational analysis. Just remember your day 1 case is really testing you on just how you can put the case together as more of a business case than a technical accounting case. Right? Think of your Capstone 1. Think of how much accounting you had to put in versus all that other business knowledge, just making sure your pros, cons, your SWOT analysis, and all those are together. Now, once you're done writing your day 1 case, you essentially will debrief just like any other day. And then some tips for this day is essentially you want to immerse yourself into the case. The best case writers I've had is the ones that where they really think that they are the person that they're acting in the case. So if it says you're the CEO or the CFO, right, you're actually that person. The next tip is going to be that you know all the mission, vision, values of the case. So make sure you review all your Capstone 1 facts. The third tip I'm going to leave you with is essentially prioritize strong structure versus a lengthy response. And you can know the structure if you just reviewed all the sample responses, all the student responses, even your own Capstone 1 case or Capstone 2 cases that you've written. Look at how you structured your cases, and that's essentially the format you want to follow. So now moving on to 6 days before your CFE. So on this day, we're just going to do the day 2 case. So that's also going to include the debrief. So if you want a summary of the day 2 is essentially the one where you're going to write about your role. Again, tips on this day is essentially you want to make sure that you only read sections that are applicable to your role and you're not reading another section. There should be a very clear indicator on what section is what. You want to manage your time across both depth and core competencies. It depends on how you want to balance this. Some people go straight into, let's say, their depth area to make sure they get all of those competencies before they focus on the core. I personally would want to just do the case as is. So I'd read all the initial case and then I would read the, let's say, assurance part or tax part, whichever depth you're picking. And then afterwards, I will just do them in chronological order. So if it is the core competencies first, I'd do that. And then I go into the depth. The key is that when you do your planning in terms of how much time you spend in each section, you just move on if you're out of time, right? You don't want to just waste too much time writing all your core competencies and then not have enough time for the depth. So after all that, you're going to just debrief, just like any other case. Some tips for this case or this day would be that you don't want to chase for perfection, right? You just want to aim for you have enough. You have enough depth that you can move on, especially when you're doing your core competencies, because they can come back out in your day 3 case. In your depth area, perhaps you do want to spend a little bit more time, but again, you don't need to have a perfect case to pass the CFE. I'd also encourage everyone to use bullet points wherever possible. This tip kind of is good for all your cases, not just this one. So now let's move on to 5 days before your exam, which is working on your mock day 3 cases. So this one, if you didn't know, is essentially you have various different cases and you have to complete them within the time given. So most of the time you're going to be given 3 cases depending on how much time limit each case is. Sometimes you might have 2. I think that's the lowest that they can give you, and possibly they can give you 4 if the cases are shorter. But typically I've seen 3. So in this day, you're going to essentially go through all your cases like any other cases you've done, very similar to any module practice cases you've done. Those are the essentially short cases. It could range from 60 minutes to upwards of 90 minutes, I believe. So as you're going through these cases, the key thing is time. You don't want to get stuck on any individual case, especially the first few, because it's really going to hurt you on the last one. I've heard lots of stories of people, only taking 5 minutes from the first case, another 5 minutes from the second case, and then ending up to lose 10 minutes on the third case because they went overtime. And if the last case is a shorter case, those 10 minutes will really either make or break that last case. So make sure you stick to your time limits. The next thing is make sure that you understand all of your technical questions. And again, the tip is always reread the line before and the line after before the actual required. So wherever you find the requireds, look at the line above, look at the line below, make sure you fully understand the question before you move on. And finally, only 4 more days before your exam. Now you're just going to wrap up any debrief you couldn't finish the previous days on the cases that you wrote this week. But essentially, once you're done that, that is the last time, hopefully, you need a debrief at all. So hopefully that motivates you to get through this day. If you're done debriefing already, I'd say that today is really for technical review. So look at all those past notes that you've had written across all of your cases you've ever done and kind of review everything. Essentially, by reviewing all your notes, you're supposed to be able to redo that same case where the note came from and get C's on all your competencies. Now, with just 3 days before the exam, essentially you're here to just retain all the information you know, right? So it's really just reflecting on all the technical that you know, reviewing all the technical, reviewing all the techniques that you know how to do cases with, the structure, and then just keep it all inside of you for the next 6 days, essentially 3 days before the exam and the 3 days of the exam. So go through all your notes and understand, what is it in IFRS or ASPE that you still need to memorize, any tax competencies, and so on and so forth. At this point, you don't want to add too much to your knowledge because whenever I was doing it, I was always afraid of memorizing something new and then forgetting something old. So instead of memorizing new things, I'm just here to make sure that I'm padding on to everything I already know. At this point, you just want to keep your confidence high. Don't spook yourself. Don't introduce new topics. Don't try to go memorizing new topics that have like an obscure chance of being on the actual final exam, right? So just go for everything that you do know, and it's just really refreshing yourself on concepts that you already know. Now, with just 2 days left before the final exam, there's no more cases to do and there's no more debriefing anymore. It's just going to be a light review and relax, right? You just want to be in a good headspace. You want to be in a good mindset so that you can actually do the case. There's a lot of people that still stress out last 2 days before the exam or last day before the exam, and then it just throws them off when they have to actually do the exam. So, what I'd say is now is just padding on, reinforcing all the knowledge that you know, get good sleep, get good exercise if you need to, do some yoga, relax yourself, just to make sure that you're still in it in terms of reviewing technical, but at the same time you don't have to go as hard as you were probably 2 3 weeks ago when you were doing cases day after day. Finally, just one day before your Capstone 1 case and your first day of your CFE. Essentially, everything has led up to this the last couple weeks of studying, and all those hours that you've spent reading the handbook, reading your notes, is really for just tomorrow. So, this last day, what you're going to focus on is essentially going through your day 1 Capstone case. So, go through your Capstone 1, go through all the Capstone 2 cases related to your day 1. Remember all of your users, your objectives, your mission, your values, everything, all the situational analysis that you can think of, all the situational analysis that you've done. Just try to remember everything and really, again, embody the role. Really believe that you're that character or that role that you're supposed to play, right? Pretend that it's your actual self and pretend that that case is your actual situation. The best tip I can leave you with is essentially stick to your situational analysis. Use it everywhere throughout your whole case. This whole case is not about how technically sound you're going to be, it's about how you can give the best business advice to the users. You're going to give them a sound analysis and then provide a good recommendation. Last thing I can leave you guys with is what a good friend told me, and it's that you are a CPA. Don't worry about how the results are going to be, but stepping into that first exam, you are a CPA. And you just need to prove it, and you need to write it as if you are a CPA, and you're just going to prove it to the markers, prove it to the reviewers that you are one. So don't worry, don't think of it as the exam to get your CPA, but think of it as you already are a CPA. So, last question I want to end off with is what strategies are you considering for your final exam? Are you going to use the guide in this video where I laid out the last 7 days, or are you going to try something different? Either way, let me know in the comments below how you felt this study strategy is if you used it, or your own study strategy if you have something different, and then also how you thought about the final exam. And if you made it this far into the video, just want to say good luck on your exam and wish you all the best. If you liked what you saw in this video, please like and subscribe, and also share it with someone that can benefit from it.